All right, for more on last night's debate, let's bring in Steve Schmidt, the founder of The Warning, a newsletter, YouTube channel, and podcast on politics and government. He's also advising Congressman Dean Phillips, who's challenging President Biden for the Democratic nomination for president, and Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State under former President Obama. He's also running as a Democrat in Maryland's 6th Congressional District. Steve, Joel, welcome to Morning Rush. Thank you both for being here.
So, Steve, we were talking to a guest earlier on the show, and I kind of said, well, listen, Donald Trump is still, by any measure, the front runner by 1,000 miles here. So what is really the point of these debates other than this inevitable clash for second place, seemingly between Haley and DeSantis? That was the dynamic at play last night, and everyone other than Christie not wanting to touch Trump. So more of the same last night, essentially. What was your main headline, if there was one last night?
If a tree falls in the woods and there's no one there, does it make a sound? This is an age-old question, but a key one to understanding the effect of this debate. Take out Dean Phillips for a second, who I'm not advising, but involved with one of the outside groups. But just look at Marianne Williamson and Joe Biden. Marianne Williamson is closer in the polls to President Biden than Nikki Haley is to Donald Trump. None of this is real. Donald Trump is winning by 40 points, at least. The only candidate on the debate stage that will dare mention his name is Chris Christie. And what you saw from Vivek Ramaswamy was nothing short of insanity, as he blamed the Bush administration for the 9/11 attacks, embraced 10 different conspiracies in a breathless 70 seconds between smears. And so really what the debate demonstrates is how fully, wholly captured the Republican Party is by Donald Trump. And it was an extraordinary contrast to judge the town hall against the enthusiasm of the Trump town hall in Davenport that took place the day before. But it's not a real event. It's really no different than a reality episode that might take place in a cooking show or a dancing show. This just happens to be with people who will never be the president.
So, Joel, as we watch these debates play out, you have some independent third-party voters, more moderates. They may feel like they don't have really good options or second options on the GOP side. What do you think Democrats can do to kind of attract those moderates, especially when there's polling out there that President Biden isn't doing so well amongst younger voters, minority voters, and really getting those votes back?
Well, Alex, first of all, I think last night, if anything, helps the Democratic Party, because what we saw again was such a depressing affair of negativity. No contrast to Donald Trump. There's literally nobody in the Republican Party that can stand up to Donald Trump or even tries, except for Chris Christie, who, as we heard from the crowd, the mob booed and mocked. And clearly no vision for how to combat gun violence, no vision for how to ensure that the climate crisis is being addressed, no vision for expanding health care to all Americans. These are the things that Americans care about, and these are the issues the Democrats run on. And this is why once we really get going, and once Donald Trump is crowned king of the Republican Party once again in a couple of months, that contrast will be made clear. And so for me as a Democrat, as a candidate running for office, I just found last night to be despicable, a display of contempt for voters. Donald Trump doesn't show up. That's contempt. Vivek Ramaswamy, as Steve points out, engaging in great replacement theory, 911 trutherism. I mean, just abject insanity. And so for me, it's a real disservice to our public dialogue. And I think that when we see President Biden on the stage alongside Donald Trump, but even in those months of debates and discussions and engagements, there will be some normalcy out there provided, and that's where independents are going to be listening. Last night, if anything, should turn off independent-minded voters.
Steve, I'm wondering, too, what larger lesson you draw from Kevin McCarthy's departure from Congress at the end of the year? It's a big political story because it was such a dramatic fall from grace, but it also does speak to kind of the instability within the party itself, beyond the presidential race, also very much on Capitol Hill, with the MAGA flank of the Republican Party. How should the public read Kevin McCarthy saying, I'm out, I'm not even going to finish my term?
It's unsurprising that he would resign his seat after losing the speakership, but this is how people should think about this. This is an important lesson about American politics in this moment, particularly as we look forward to a season of renewal. What happened to Kevin McCarthy was explained perfectly by John Kennedy in his inaugural address. He gave a warning, and he said, beware to those that seek power by trying to ride the tiger, that they wind up inside the tiger. And so what Kevin McCarthy was a mainstream Republican. He was branded as one of three young guns, along with Eric Cantor, along with Paul Ryan, back in the early 2010s. He was a refreshing and new voice, dynamic, young, and he was undone by his cynicism. And this is documented extensively in Liz Cheney's book. When Kevin McCarthy looks up at horror at the insurrection, and then days later is in Mar-a-Lago rehabilitating Donald Trump at his lowest political moment. What Kevin McCarthy was a person involved in politics, completely disinterested in policy, the affairs of the nation, who was solely devoted to the cause of Kevin McCarthy becoming the Speaker of the House, which he did in name only for a few short months before being deposed by Matt Gaetz. And now the Republican conference, honest to God, this is important for your viewers to understand, is led by a religious fanatic who believes that people and dinosaurs were walking around together 7,000 years ago. And so what Kevin McCarthy, what his legacy is one of abject cynicism and chaos and a degradation of our democratic institutions. He was the Speaker who refused to defend the House of Representatives from an attack by thousands of people who came there to burn down the American Constitution. It's one of the most ignominious legacies of a politician in the entire history of the country.
And Steve, really quick, what does this say about the larger trend that we're seeing? Because Kevin McCarthy is not the first lawmaker to retire and to leave his office. So what does it say about the larger trend that we're seeing in the GOP?
You're going to see a tremendous number of retirements on both sides of the aisle of people, and it's going to be a lot of high-functioning people on the Republican and the Democratic sides who are looking around. You talk to a member of Congress, and they say, I speak up, I'm threatened by my constituents, I'm threatened every day, life's too short, I don't want to do this. In Kevin McCarthy's case, he's going to go cash in. He's going to be a Washington, D.C. power consultant. He'll lobby as quickly as he's able to when those expirations end that prohibit him from doing so immediately after office. But there's ways around it. Kevin McCarthy's about to be a very, very wealthy man. He'll travel through the revolving door into the arms of the corporations for which he's raised hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars for the purposes of his political power. Kevin, or as my Kevin, as Donald Trump calls him, will be just fine in his political retirement.
And Joe, real quick, presidential comments been in the news this week. Let's start with the current president saying basically, I don't know if I'd be running if Donald Trump weren't running, and then Donald Trump saying he'd be a dictator, but only on day one of a possible second term for him. Start with Biden, though. Do you think that was a smart thing politically for him to say? How'd you read that comment?
Well, Rob, I think this has been the core objective of Joe Biden since he decided to run back in 2019, which is that America is in crisis, still in the middle of a crisis. If anything, it's getting worse. Our democracy, in terms of just the people who are put into office, as Steve points out, we have a House of Representatives that's led by a fundamentalist who wanted to shred the Constitution prior to January 6, 2021, excuse me. He was the intellectual author of the legal challenges to certification of the vote. So the list goes on and on. That's why Joe Biden ran in 2019, 2020, and he won to protect the country. And that's why he should do it again, because he's a unifier, because he has a broad swath of diverse support outside of just the Democratic Party. And he's essentially the only candidate right now positioned in the Democratic Party, ergo in the country, to maintain that coalition to win and protect our democracy at this critical moment. Make no mistake, Donald Trump is not lying. Donald Trump would be clear and is clear in that on day one, he will shred the Constitution. He will turn the Justice Department on his political opponents, on opponents in the media, on any perceived enemies that he has in his paranoia. And if he has his house as with Mike Johnson and some of these Senate patsies, which have demonstrated no courage, we will be in for a total destruction of the American Constitution under his leadership. And I think that this is really the choice before us coming up. If you want to protect American democracy, you're going to have to vote for Joe Biden. You're going to have to keep the wheels on this bus and get through this rocky period, because Donald Trump is threatening us, and he's saying it directly, openly, and proudly.
All right, Steve Schmidt, the founder of The Warning and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, Joel Rubin, thank you so much for your time, both of you. We'll be back.
Thank you.